Hello again. Thanks for joining me on another video. So today I was going to talk about sentience. It seems like I talk about this every single time, but I don't know if you can even contemplate enlightenment in any real sense without also contemplating self-awareness. I think they kind of are the keys to each other's front doors. So I had a blogging friend make a comment about AI sentience and whether or not you could ever code for something like that. And it really got me thinking about whether or not or why we assume that humans are sentient. And I know it sounds silly on the surface because obviously humans have body sentience. Obviously, we are aware that we feel things with our bodies, we see things with our eyes, and the inputs come in and we are aware of them and we process them. But there is a lot of information that comes in that we miss. Um, and it seems like in some regards we're almost really bad at predicting when things are going to happen in our environment, which is kind of an interesting thing to stop and think about. Like, where exactly does our self-awareness end? And if it ends at these tiny little bodies, boy, are we fragile. And so when I was looking up information on sentience, and I found a site and they were talking about like the morality of sentience, like the reason to study sentience is because of the morality of reducing suffering and increasing happiness. And I think that is entirely dependent on what the environment is, in the inputs you get from your environment. But I think it also depends on your level of self-awareness. So your subjective experience of reality, where is that line? For some people, it isn't just their body, right? So when a person has like a spiritual awakening or talks about a spiritual awakening, some of the things that they will report feeling are this like massive connection to all of Earth, all other living creatures. They will literally feel the feedback of the whole planetary system, and it expands from there into the cosmos. And I mean, just think about how much we haven't even been exposed to or even been able to imagine that could be much larger than this planet that we've been on in this little neck of our galaxy, right? So there could be just vast information out there that we are completely unaware of, but could be receiving some form of a signal from, and a form of self-awareness that we can't even interpret, right? Because we have no meaning making for it. I think that's the really interesting difference between sentience when we think of just pure sensory experience and the perception of the physical world, and sentience when it starts getting into the spiritual realms and the higher psychic realms, and the idea of soul and imagination and consciousness that is purely subjective. So where there is no material feedback, right? So no input other than I am, therefore I am, that pure subjective state, which would have no end because it is its own beginning and end, right? So I don't know if I said this already. What I find it really fascinating to think about the place where we connect our spiritual understanding into our understanding of ourselves, and how that grows as we venture on the path of enlightenment, and how vast consciousness actually is, and how little we understand of it as we're perceiving just through the five senses or the six senses of the body. Um, Even if you just include like the imagination, past and present and potential, it still is quite limited when you comprehend that there's a sense that subjectiveness, subjective awareness of all possibility Look, there's no end to that, right? Where would the end be? There would be no end to it. If it's anything that could be conjured, it's that separation between everything that exists and our awareness of everything that exists. And the spiritual journey is about putting those two pieces back together in a way that makes sense. And so that life has a broader expanse, right? And your personhood can grow from just the physical, material state of being into a more subtle, connected, more enriched life while we're on this little linear track of a timeline here on planet Earth, right? So I don't know. I was thinking about, like, if full enlightenment and awareness of how reality works, and that consciousness that has no end, if that is true sentience and full self-awareness, then there's only been like a handful of humans that have accomplished that. It's not very many at all. Um, so I think we have some growing to do, and that makes everything a lot more hopeful in my mind. Then I think we can get really bogged down in the material limitations that we see in front of us, but because we are aware, or you have the ability to be aware of potential, we know we can create futures that don't suck. We know that we have the ability to do that. And the more of subjective awareness we have of what is actually causing suffering, because sometimes that can be, like, we know the basics, but I think that there's a larger suffering happening that doesn't get addressed, and that if it was, we would feel much more connected to each other and be able to actually move forward again in some form of, like, not like utopian unity, you know, weirdness, but in cooperation, so that the basic needs getting met are a lot easier. So yeah, intellectual sentience, making meaning out of our experience of pain and pleasure, and understanding that we do get the feedback from others. So it isn't the pain and pleasure that is strictly within the realm of our physical senses. It isn't even just in the realm of our mental senses. I think that these things get picked up as we navigate life, and if we do pay attention to it, life will get better for everybody, and the future looks a lot brighter, in my opinion, from that perspective. So just some food for thought. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.